art, like movies, television, right? That these things, this industrial culture is in fact a cancer. It is the real problem. It's the real disease of our time. That human beings are so symbolic that they need meaningful work. They need meaningful relationships. They need to actually have symbolic meaning that actually makes sense. Like I was listening to Andrew Carnegie today in Think and Grow Rich, right? And Andrew Carnegie was talking about what makes a man or a human being wealthy.
Think it.
Right, to think it.
Think it.
But where did he say the source of the thoughts come from? Right, and not to confuse the issue, but he was saying from the government. Say by the example of authority. Because in this country we have the ability of government and workers to work together without intervening, a social structure, which actually was at that time true. In other words, without really having a government telling you how to treat your workers, the workers themselves would tell through the union how they wanted to be treated, and they would work like a guild with the ownership.
Right.
With management. And if you visit these towns that Andrew Carnegie founded, like McDonald, like Youngstown, Ohio, they're beautiful towns, well laid out, well planned, and the people there still enjoy the roots of that industrial connection. But that's missing because that ability to have continuity of the symbol, I work for something real, my work matters, right? These symbolic elements are the things that make a country great. And we've lost that because now our labor doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't. The wonderful article I read was a woman who is a housekeeper. I think it was maybe IBM, something really big. And she was a housekeeper and went to night school provided by IBM.
Right.
And then when she got a desk job, she went to school for management paid by IBM. And now she's corporate. And then it compared to the staff they have where they make sure they don't have enough hours. And there's no opportunity for growth.
Exactly. No opportunity for growth. This used to be a country where upward mobility was guaranteed. And it was not like, again, the European caste-like system. I can say that for a fact. My family is a family of immigrants. We were refugees. 50s and 60s, my family came over as displaced people. Right? And we made a comfortable existence in one generation. That's really not true for the new generations coming in. It's not as easy.
No, this is the first generation that will make less than their parents made.
Right. And this is the cancer of our times. How can that be?
Well, one of the things American dream is you have to get into debt to buy a house.
Right. And that's why we circle it back to the plant. Right. The plant is a true opportunity to reboot the American economy because it's a commodity people can grow. Right. We can actually create it, which is again like manufacturing. It allows look at the event today. There are people here who are able to create a new commerce that didn't exist before. That newness of the economy is one of the big social justice issues that has to be brought out. Why legalization is important, because it brings commerce, brings money and prosperity to communities that have been bullied, absolutely bullied by the same drug laws, right? So this is where we are today. Later on today in the show, we're going to have president of, I don't know what Dr. Keith Saunders' actual title is, but at 8:45, we're going to be bringing on like a real smarty pants. Right, real smarty pants.
Smarter than you.
Oh my God, Dr. Keith is like the real thing. Right, I listened to this guy's stuff. He politically active, went to Colgate. Now Colgate University, for some reason, has graduated 4 past directors of Normal. Like a very activist program, and teaching people again real politics and a lot
Their
of normal.
dorms must be well ventilated.
I hope, yeah, exactly right. I should have known. We should have gone to Colgate. So, anyways, Dr. Saunders will be on in a little bit. Listen, we're going to take a break, Mr. J. Bring us to the break at the top, and we're going to check to see if we'll have Mrs. May on with Skype, and see if we can get what else we can get going on for the show. Physician for the people, y'all. Thank you so much, Jay. We'll take it out to some IGs, 2 IGs, would you? Thank you.
Cannabis community. Physician for the people. I'm talking to you. I'm asking. Are you in your power? Are you in your power now? Cannabis community. Y'all are the leaders, and we're waiting for you. Are you happy with the way things are? Ask in your soul. And I know when you go deep in there, the cannabis community listens, and they feel, and they act, because they took on their healing. They took on the plant and healing their endocannabinoid system when the plant was under prohibition under this police state regime. So I asked the cannabis community, the leaders, the people who broke the back of prohibition and made it legal and made it the new normal. I'm asking you, cannabis community, what do you want? Cannabis community, physician for the people. I'm talking to you. I'm asking, are you in your power? Are you in your power now? Cannabis community, y'all are the leaders, and we're waiting for you.
May, are you there? Are you live? Can you hear us?
I'm here. I can see you too.
Oh, awesome, awesome. May, let me first appreciate you, introduce you. May Wright, you are one of the most knowledgeable people about the plant I have ever met, and your dedication to the plant is humbling, because what you've done as an herbalist, as an activist, is really opened the plant up to the multitudes, and I'm so grateful. And I want you to share with us how you can share where you want to start, but how can people get into the Maryland Cannabis Program? And I want you to walk us through it.
Thank you. I will do that. Well, it's very easy to do online. They have a great website. So the first thing I'll give you is the website, which is mmcc.maryland.gov.
Maryland.gov. Yes, we're
Yep.
getting it written down. Yes. Right on.
mmcc.maryland.gov. So you go to that page, and then on the left-hand side, you go down 3 tabs, the blue tabs on the left. There is a tab to click that says MMCC Registry. And you click that tab for the registry to sign in to create an account. So on the left-hand side, after you click on the registry, will be an area for patients. So you click to create an account as a patient, and then there is some basic information that you're going to need in order to become a patient.
Okay.
And first is a photo ID, a government-issued photo ID, such as a driver's license or a passport photo. Well, you need both. You need a driver's license and identification, and you need a passport photo. So you need the identification, and then you need a photo. It's really easy to do online because I have an app I love to use when I help patients register, and it's called Passport Booth. It's a great app, and it's free. You can download that app onto your phone, Passport Booth. You can download that app onto your phone, and then you just take a picture with a light background. I actually used a yellow background outside. You can use a white background is best, with no flash and natural daylight. That is the best picture that tends to come out in that app. And then you can email the picture to yourself for free. You can pay to have it run off, but you actually only need the digital photo for this online application for the Maryland Registry. The Maryland Medical Cannabis Registry made it very patient-friendly to do at low cost and online. So you get your photo through Passport Booth or another similar free photo app, email it to yourself, and then save it to your computer. And you need your address, and if you've recently moved, if your address is different than your driver's license or your photo ID, it is important to have the Maryland Department of Motor Vehicles driver's license change of address card.
Right.
That's one of the images you're going to need to upload. And if you're really pressed and want to register and need to go to get to a dispensary to get your medicine, and you haven't received that change of address card yet, you can use a utility bill. You can also use a standard lease agreement.
Right.
So for your mortgage or anything like that, I would recommend the lease agreement because they're easily filed and found online. If you don't have your lease agreement or if it needs updating, you can just upload that. And that's acceptable. Online, it details all this information on the MMCC registry, but that's the basic information that you're going to need. Also, if you're registering someone else, a minor or somebody who needs a caregiver, registering as a caregiver, then you will need proof of your relationship with the person. And online on the MMCC registry, the first questions that you're asked after you create an account
Right.
or before you begin, is the patient under age 18 or is the patient in hospice care? And you click yes or no, and then it takes you to the next pages. So you also need the last 4 digits of the patient's social security number.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see what else. I'm looking on their website. It's changed a little bit, so I just want to give you the most updated information. You need an electronic copy of the front and back of your government ID. So when you take a picture of the front and the back. You'll upload those. There's an area on your application to hit upload, and the documents just upload right up there.
Nice.
And the electronic copy of the photo, that's your passport photo booth picture.
Right.
And you need a valid, accessible email address where the MMCC can email you the fact that they've received your application
Right.
and updates. So they will email you when you are assigned a registration number or if there are any problems with your application.
Right. Right.
The most common problems are a glare in the photo or an unreadable photo or image.
Oh, got it.
So generally you will hear back in about 2 weeks. I have had some patients hear back in about a week, but I see that it's taking about 2 weeks for the MMCC to turn around patient registrations or to let a patient know that there's been an issue such as an illegible or unreadable photo.
Fascinating.
So in that case, you would just take the photo again, upload it again, refresh your application, resubmit, and it could take up to another 2 weeks. My actual application, I had a photo glare. That was the first one I did, was my own. And then I learned through that error and then it took me 3 weeks to get my actual registration in. So the actual time to fill out the application and take all the photos, if you have all of your information together, it took me about 20 minutes.
Right.
Myself, the first time, I think that a person who isn't as technically savvy, and I'm not very technically savvy, I must add, it could take up to a half an hour. But once you're used to it, or if you want help doing it, it takes me about 10 minutes to do it. Also, the MMCC on their page, that first page that you have the website address up for now, they have events and they hold patient registration fairs. So if you need assistance, there are several dispensaries and industry operators who are holding fairs, and they help you do patient sign-up events. And also, the MMCC occasionally holds patient registration fairs as well. So the information, if you are registering for a minor or someone in hospice care, is you need a notarized copy of your MMCC minor patient form.
That's interesting.
There's a link to it on the MMCC website.
Yoganita, do you have something you want to jump in?
You can also use birth certificate, adoption papers, or court orders that show you have legal guardianship over the minor. Did you have a question?
I'm sorry, man. I wanted to jump in because that is so interesting that they've made such allowances for pediatric care in the Maryland program. Does the Maryland program actually stipulate which pediatric conditions that it lists that it will actually pass children for?
Yes, all the qualifying conditions are right on the MMCC, the registration page and the patient information page.
Are they different for pediatric?
No, they're the same.
Right.
For all patients.
For all patients.
Regardless of age spectrum.
Let me ask you again. This is a recommendation. So what we're looking at as a flow chart is you're self-recommending through the Maryland MCC website.
You're self-registering. This is step 1.
Right. And then they accept you. Or not, but they
accept you.
Yes.
You can go see your physician before or after this, but if you are waiting for your appointment with your physician, this is how you initiate the process. You need to take part in this process, and you need to self-register. Your physician, you need to register because you give that physician your registration number that you're assigned at the end of that 2 to 4 to even 5 weeks that it takes to get your registration, your patient registration number.
Got it.
You give that patient registration, you can go have the appointment with your recommending provider at any time, and then you're going to give them your patient registration number they will then go on their access through the website, enter their recommendation for that patient registration number, not your name. Therefore, it's anonymized in that way. They won't access your name.
Interesting. So there's an anonymous filter, let's say, in the process, because we wanted to ask about that. Yeah, that's great. So that does predict.
Giving our physicians our numbers, but that's all they have access to is the number.
Oh, so that is actually a nice protection, because this is not a prescription per se. This is a recommendation of cannabis. So it may or may not be covered by HIPAA regulations. Let me ask you that. Is it?
It is not, in fact. However, in practice, a lot of physicians who follow the Hippocratic Oath will practice it to the degree that they are, to the degree that they choose to.
Right. Yeah, I guess so.
To the degree that they're comfortable. Yes.
Are there any downsides that you're seeing right now with this process? Because actually, I got to tell you, I'm very impressed with the mail-in program, at least by intention. The change from medical marijuana to medical cannabis began very early, and also the way that the law is worded, I think is very.
Yes, we lobbied very strongly for that. I was actually a co-founder for the Maryland the Maryland Cannabis Policy Coalition.
Yes,
that was started at my dining room table with my business partner and spouse. And so we lobbied very strongly. We brought all of the different organizations that have been advocating for medical cannabis in Maryland for the past decade, brought them together at a coalition, and that was run by the ACLU for a long time, and now the MPP is heading it up with the ACLU. We had a great lobbyist who just left, Dan Furmansky. He also passed same-sex marriage in Maryland. He's a great guy. I just had to give Dan a little plug there.
Absolutely. That's good work.
Hey, Dan, if you're listening. And so we lobbied very strongly to have the name changed because, this is a medicine, and cannabis, we need to have we need to have a conversation with physicians. We need to bring them to an understanding about the endocannabinoid system and cannabis as medicine and the history of cannabis as medicine, because a lot of physicians just are uneducated as of yet. They're just starting to add it back into medical education today, and I would say they're in the steps of infancy.
Well said, May. I got to tell you, one of the things that I enjoy talking to you about is the way that you describe the responsibility necessary for patients to understand their own endocannabinoid system, that we can't necessarily rely on a bud tender, but we have to become our own cannabis activists, our own cannabis coaches.
Absolutely. And when you're shopping for a dispensary, don't be afraid to look around. Make sure that you feel comfortable when you walk into that dispensary. Make sure you feel warm, welcome, and invited. And make sure that those bud tenders are not called bud tenders.
No.
They should be patient consultants. They should be informing you and educating you. They are most likely going to be much more educated and informed and have a lot more certifications right now. They are the patient advocates. They're the people like me who have been working to change the laws in Maryland. We're much more informed at this point than the majority of the physicians. We're helping educate the physicians at this point. So you really want to, shop around your dispensaries. Make sure those patient consultants know, your full spectrum of symptoms. Make sure they know how you feel in your body, how cannabis is processed in your individual endocannabinoid system. Make sure they are versed in the endocannabinoid system. If they don't have knowledge of terpenes and cannabinoids in your endocannabinoid system and how they interact with your individual constitution, then I would suggest you continue to look around so that you really have a patient consultant relationship with your patient consultant.
Oh, that's awesome, May. That is the fierce truth, right? You got to work with people who know how to deliver the difference. And that's why right now I want you to tell us which one is
empowering. That's empowering yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's medicine for the people.
Medicine for the people.
Medicine for the people.
Right, and that's what you have been working so hard to deliver. And you are, in fact, on the tip of the spear. You're, in fact, opening this medical dispensary in Maryland.
Yes, Mission, Maryland. Our dispensary is going to be in Catonsville, Maryland.
Amazing.
And actually we're partnering with a bunch of other dispensaries, the Mission brand, and there's going to be one in Hamden, and there's one down in the Wheaton area.
Mission.
And actually, Mission Brands is also opening in Allentown, PA.
So Mission in Catonsville, we've got to make sure that's the place where people in Maryland can go for the most knowledgeable cannabis coach and advocate that you're going to want to meet.
Well, thank you. I will be the general manager there, and I'll be helping to train all of our patient consultants to be canna coaches, certified cannabis coaches.
Exactly. Setting the standard, May. Every time I talk to you, I learn something, and I feels like I'm actually kicking up. I'm upgrading. I'm upgrading the conversation.
The same way when I spend time with you, so I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, we're going to take it to the IG, and we're going to bring in our next guest. But May, you have so made the show. Thank you again. We'll talk to you
so
soon.
much.
Thank you again.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Deuces. All right.
Take care.
We're going to bring in,
In a godless time, in a machine age like ours, the computers have taken over because people work for them. They're attached to them. I'm talking to a computer right now, and you're listening to me on a computer. The computers rule, and the people drool, suffer, because we're good in our nature. We do good things. We want to be good. So we're being good right now. We're being good to the computers. All right, are you being good to yourself? Are you being good to your community? In a godless time, in a machine age like ours, we have to go beyond the computers. We go beyond the mind. You have to go to what's kind. What's kind in a machine age where the computers have taken over? Are you good to other people? Best way to find out is, are you good to yourself? Be good to yourself. Find the God in you. Find the God in others. Find the God in life. In a godless time, in a machine age like ours, the computers have taken over because people work for them. They're attached to them. I'm talking to a computer right now, and you're listening to me on a computer. The computers rule, and the people drool, suffer, because we're good in our nature. We do good things. We want to be good. So we're being good right now. We're being good to the computers. All right, are you being good to yourself? Are you being good to your community? In a godless time, in a machine age like ours, we have to go beyond the computers. We go beyond the mind. You have to go to what's kind. What's kind in a machine age where the computers have taken over? Are you good to other people? Best way to find out is, are you good to yourself? Be good to yourself. Find the God in you. Find the God in others. Find the God in life. In a godless time, in a machine age like ours, the computers have taken over because people work for them. They're attached to them. I'm talking to a computer right now, and you're listening to me on a computer. The computers rule, and the people drool, suffer, because we're good in our nature. We do good things. We want to be good. So we're being good right now. We're being good to the computers. All right, are you being good to yourself? Are you being good to your community? In a godless time, in a machine age like ours, we have to go beyond the computers. We go beyond the mind. You have to go to what's kind. What's kind in a machine age where the computers have taken over? Are you good to other people? Best way to find out is, are you good to yourself? Be good to yourself. Find the God in you. Find the God in others. Find the God in life. In a godless time, in a machine age like ours, the computers have taken over because people work for them. They're attached to them. I'm talking to a computer right now, and you're listening to me on a computer. The computers rule, and the people drool, suffer, because we're good in our nature. We do good things. We want to be good. So we're being good right now. We're being good to the computers. All right, are you being good to yourself? Are you being good to your community? In a godless time, in a machine age like ours, we have to go beyond the computers. We go beyond the mind. You have to go to what's kind. What's kind in a machine age where the computers have taken over? Are you good to other?
Dr. Keith. Do we have a Dr. Keith Saunders on the line?
Oh, I hope
I hope so. This guy's a genius,
hope
and
so.
everything he's got to say is worth listening to. One of the most powerful and interesting advocates for the plant I've ever been in contact with. Dr. Keith, are you on the line? It dropped. One more time. Dr. Keith, again, this gentleman actually probably called himself the most dangerous stoner in America. His program is called the Boston Pot Report. Right? Very smart, very original, very smart guy coming online. Dr. Keith, are you there, my friend?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Right on.
Hello.
Turn on your video. Can you give me a video signal?
Let me check and make sure I can do that.
Let's see ya. What do we got? Do we got him?
I think so.
Yeah, maybe we can see your face. Well, listen, Dr. Keith, I am so glad to have you on. I don't want to get stuck in the technical anomalies. First of all, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background, sir. You know, start anywhere you want.
Let's see. As people have given it the name the cannabis space, since it's become above board. I first entered the cannabis space back in 1986 on Columbus Day weekend at a fraternity at Colgate University in Hamilton, New York. They were passing around an old acrylic bong with that aluminum cone for a bowl and actually a book of matches to light it. And so it was passed around to me, and I lit the match, and I put the match down towards the bowl, and I sucked as hard as I could on the top of that thing, and barely any match touched the flower at all. And
Yeah.
it wasn't even flour; it was just brown, bricked, so forth.
Right.
And they eventually told me, hey, there's a carb on the side, so I put my thumb on the side of it. This time the flame got pulled all the way down into the bowl. Got myself a nice strong hit, pulled my thumb off the carb, and then coughed back down right down the tube of the bong and shot the piece of weed across the room with a little bit of rain for everybody in the way.
Classic.
Yeah, they were nice enough to let me stick around.
Right.
And about 20 minutes later, it came my way again. This time I knew enough to remove my mouth before I coughed.
Right.
And I got high for the first time, and I liked it. And so right there in the middle of the just say no era, I just said yes.
Right on. Right on. And you got your PhD in actually cannabis policy, though. You went, not only took you, if I'm not mistaken, sir, I mean, you went to Colgate, where apparently this is quite a graduate study. I mean, people graduate from Colgate and then started doing work with Normal. Could you just give some background on that? How'd you do that? Go from smoking a bong to wanting to do a PhD in it?
Well, that's its own story. I was graduating and I was looking at potential careers. This was back in 1989, and it said that there was going to be this decline in the number of people. A lot of professors would be retiring, and I had some background. I like sociology a lot. I was thinking about law school. I went to work for a law firm for a year, decided that wasn't for me, so I went to graduate school in sociology at Northeastern University and found that this was something that I was really interested in learning more about. So I took what was really at that point sort of an avocation and turned it into a vocation.
Right there. Dr. Keith, right there. That is the thing that I really wanted to highlight. Somehow, this is a form of leadership where people take their passion for the plant and they turn it into activism. And that's what I'm seeing here in this community. And that's why I really wanted you on the show, because if we get as many stories that we can share about people coming to their power, getting paid to play, getting paid to do something they're passionate about, to me, this is how we get the cannabis community in the lead, right? So tell me now, right, one of the big things that you're local to Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is going back and forth with their attorney general, with the legalization march. We expect full legalization, retail sales July 1st in Massachusetts. Do you think that the feds will hang that up? Do you think that there's any chance that Sessions is going to put pressure and stop that date? Let me just ask you that.
I don't think so. I don't think California has gone above board. California is a much larger market. It's the largest one of all. It sort of is the combination of Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Massachusetts, Maine, and another state Nevada, and another state to be named later.
Right.
So I don't think there's anything that they can really do.
Right.
It's always the threat of federal involvement. And I wouldn't put it past them. Their strategy has evolved over time. They started by raiding the patient cooperatives and collectives in California and the West Coast.
Right.
And then they went on to raiding dispensaries and raiding their grow operations for dispensaries. And then they went on to writing threatening letters to landlords to try to get state legal cannabis businesses to, be basically, put into diaspora. And it's entirely possible that the Attorney General could choose to order seizure of funds that can be traced back to the cultivation, production, processing, and retail sales of cannabis.
Right.
Their target strategically probably would be one of the larger venture capital firms, their accounts, or one of the sort of multi-state medical operations, going after something that's on the large scale. I think they found out it doesn't pay to arrest patients.
Right. Yes. Interesting.
So their strategy, I think that they've been increasing the scope of their strategy, and they've been going after larger and larger targets. I mean, even when they were doing it, they went after Steve D'Angelo at Harborside when they were raiding dispensaries, because he was the biggest target. He was huge.
Right.
So they went after it. So I can see them doing the same thing with, the larger venture capital firms that say we are actually investing in the processing and the cultivation of the plant in these various states.
This is fascinating. So you're saying the bigger companies are at more risk than the smaller companies at this point, the bigger investors, because perhaps at the 100 plant limit, they're automatically in violation of federal law, whereas a smaller artisanal grower may not even have that federal prohibition in place. Perhaps. Maybe that's one of the lines in the sand.
Well, ratio in terms of cost and return, it makes more sense for the federal government to go after where they can seize the equivalent of millions of dollars worth of crop rather than thousands.
Right. So with that in mind, this idea that the federal government may be blocking or creating a barrier to entry to big corporations, this is actually a blessing in disguise for artisanal or for the cannabis community to develop, let's say, more human scale cannabis culture and production.
To a degree, yeah. There's sort of an unfortunate element of legalization is that prohibition produced small businesses. It was that was the offshoot, right? A kid with a connection with a grower who's got a scale and some baggies and a backpack and a bicycle used to be able to operate a marijuana operation. Still can do so under the margins of anything that's legal at a state level, as long as they can get their supply cheap enough. But it's just that it's going to be a very rapid uptick in terms of the scalability. Once federal law changes and corporations are allowed to move product across state lines without fear of federal intervention, that will spell a very different scope. It's an oddity. Prohibition gave rise to a very significant cultural response in terms of the marijuana users. And the users themselves were capable enough to take on prohibition and more or less get it to the point where it's very close to being defeated. I mean, it still exists in horrible ways, but we have seen more positive steps over the past decade than negative by far.
Dr. Keith, I want to jump in. I want to jump in right there. Let me ask you. Let me ask you. The fact that you bring up as a sociologist, right, the cannabis community, having taken on prohibition and defeated it as a community, what does this say about this group of people? Who are we? And are we on the verge of coming into political power, like say a baby boomer generation, or like again, do we have political power that we just don't know about yet? Let me ask you a real question. What does the sociologist say about the cannabis community?
The community that I encountered in my own experiences when I went into the field to research it in a serious way about 18 years ago, was a very entrepreneurial community. It was a community of resistance. You had people, especially the ones who were participating in activism, because we have to remember there has been a sort of a bright line between those who have been the primary producers of illicit crops and those who were able to speak publicly. And even though I'd say 98-point-something% of those who spoke publicly under prohibition were marijuana users, they were not the reality. It was rare to find somebody who was deeply, deeply involved in large scale production. The people
Right.
in Northern California who were producing the tons
Right.
were not talking.
Exactly.
Perhaps back to High Times magazine. But if you wanted to find activists, the most empowered activists came from the demographic that had the greatest degree of power. I mean, you had people who were college educated, had professional degrees, white, middle class backgrounds who were able to voice their interest in being able to consume cannabis and live life responsibly and without causing disruption. So they create a culture that's in resistance, but also very much in conformity in a way. I mean, it doesn't oppose capitalism, although they're
Interesting, yeah.
under prohibition. The sharing of cannabis really is something quite different. I mean, I believe in the doctrine of free herb, which is if somebody gives me cannabis that I didn't ask for, if anybody asks me for that cannabis, I give it to them because it's not mine to begin with. So
Right on, yeah.
that sort of disappears, right? The capacity for somebody who has built a trust with a supplier who's able to get an ounce fronted to them every 2 weeks and who's able to then
Yes, sir.
distribute 3/4 of that ounce to 3 different friends that they have and cover the cost of their own supply, and they're getting it fronted to them anyway. So all they're doing is they're basically, instead of trading marijuana for money and money for marijuana, they're trading marijuana for marijuana for marijuana, which is sort of it's an interesting sort of adjustment.
That's
The
exactly
whole
right.
process. I know people still that I can say, hey, can I have X amount of dollars worth? And they will give it to me on the promise of payment. I can't go down to the local 7-Eleven and say, hey,
Right,
can I
right.
have this bottle of soda and I'll pay you later.
Yeah, absolutely. Like cannabis
And
somehow.
that's where we're heading to that. We're heading to a situation where the normalization that so many people have sought is actually coming true. In a way, it's killing off that special quality that we had. And I'm not certain that you can really get that back.
I love that point. Dr. Keith, that has got my attention to such a large degree because here in DC, the DC miracle is it's a gifting economy. So pop-up events go on. People have artisanal stickers, CDs, glass tips, and these then go for a price. And then the way that it works out, then a person will gift to you for something, free weed, right? Once you've established a relationship. So the point is that there is no other regulatory force. There's no other government standards. There's all personal relationships, yet they're above board. And this is almost like the best of both worlds. You have the personal relationship of the black market, yet you have the openness of a decriminalized market. Now, the thing, as we look towards a real retail schedule coming on in D.C., that's what exactly people are saying. We're going to lose that gifting economy. And I want to ask you, is there any way, how do we keep the gifting elements of the economy, this gifting economy, this communal aspect? Are there things that we can do now, I'll ask you, that we can preserve the gifting elements of the cannabis community?
I think there is something to be said about small-scale personal production. And that's sort of not necessarily artisanal commercial, but people who, because it doesn't take a lot of extra work to cultivate a nice cannabis garden. And despite everybody's seeming concern about, THC and CBD content and how many, what's your percentage of THCA and, those who can appreciate it like one would appreciate craft beer. Or a small winery's production of wine, with somebody who produces 5,000 cases of wine a year rather than 100,000. So somebody who produces a couple of pounds a year, who's able to share and distribute, who's able to, build a reputation amongst other people who are doing the same thing.
So get to know your grower. Get to know
your grower, get to know your brewer.
Right,
Same
right.
idea.
Buy local.
Buy local, right?
Smoke local.
Smoke local, right. I like that, right? Keep it local. And this is sort of my wrap-up question, Dr. Keith, right? One of the things that, when they say we as a cannabis community, we would wish to have cannabis treated like alcohol. And yet at the same time, right, the way that we assume that alcohol necessitates a excise tax, a sin tax, right, that we assume that as cannabis consumers we should pay like in alcohol, again, a sin tax. The taxing regime that we have in the different legalization schedules, I got to ask you, how can we actually come up with a real retail price unless there is competition? How do we actually come up? What I'm seeing the prices in California right now, they're like $500, $600 an ounce. They exceed the black market. So the real reason to legalize is so that you could kill the black market. So I'm asking you, Dr. Keith, how do we have a retail market that makes the politicians happy and still kills the black market? Is it possible, really?
To a degree. I think that what we're going to see in California is those prices are going to drop very rapidly over the next 18 months to 2 years. I think that's what happened in Washington and Colorado. When Colorado sold its first gram, it was $25 plus tax.
Right.
Right now, grams in Colorado and Washington are under $10. And then with tax added on, put them under $13. I think it's entirely possible to have an economy of scale where you can produce enough cannabis and have enough market differentiation that you should be able to have grams that sell for $10 with tax.
Right.
And if you add on to that people who are cultivating at home, an efficient home cultivation system can produce grams. If somebody is paying attention to what they're doing, you can produce grams for less than $10. So that would pull the people who are most likely to cultivate on their own, just like with home brewers, are also likely to purchase boutique product. So they're going to niche market themselves. They're going to have the stuff that they grow and they share with their friends and they compare with each other in their competitions. And then they're going to go out and buy the $18 and $20 grams. The dedicated connoisseur market.
Love it.
Other people, will just, instead of smoking Cohiba cigars, will just take, Philly's blunts without stuffing them with weed. And that's what we're going to get. We're going to get the equivalent of Philly's blunts stuffed with weed, but not blunts. We're going to get, sort of generic cannabis bud of indifferent origin, and we'll just, it ends up being sort of all processed together. We're going to get to the point where these companies themselves are going to be extracting cannabinoids and terpenoids and reapplying them to the product, just like the tobacco companies do.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. And that's going to drive the price down. So, I mean, unfortunately, what happens is you'll get your mean consumer will be happy to pay $8 for substandard quality, and your high connoisseur will be cultivating their own that has its own properties and buying the higher end stuff or trading with the higher end stuff that their friends are growing.
Well, that's it. Dr. Keith, that's an answer and a half, my friend. You have everything I asked you. Notice he's got not only a good answer, but an answer and some more to think about.
Yes.
I hope we can have you on again, maybe once a month, Dr. Keith, for real.
Please.
If it's possible.
I'd be happy to. Let's talk about that.
I would love to talk to you about that in the future, all right? Dr. Keith, I'm going to let you go. The show, we're a little over, but God bless. We had a great time with everybody. Jay, thanks for letting us stay and talk to Dr. Keith while we had him. And we'll see you again next week. Y'all, take care.
Good night.
Deuces.
Good night.
Good night.